Well, it's so good to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program today. I appreciate it.
Yep, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
So, I want to begin our conversation with 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing our lives, our world, the way we lived. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you live and do your work today in 2026?
Great.
Yeah, that's it. That's the first question.
Okay. So um, there were a couple of things happening on multiple levels when we were looking at our business, and I'm saying we because I have a business partner. We've been together for, close to 25 years, and our training and leadership development and coaching business, we really did all our trainings in person up until the pandemic. And I remember that we had scheduled a trip to Singapore and China just, while all this was going on. And at some point, we were looking at each other going, it feels like that might not be a good idea, might not be a good idea at this moment in time. And so my business partner and I spent a weekend together, and we recalibrated all our in-person trainings and made them virtual. We moved it virtually, and we did it basically just for our Singapore students. And it was delivered. We did it together. It was very well received. It worked beautifully. And we said, well, I mean, who knows how long this is going to take? Let's just put it out there. And so we put it on the website. We sent out a newsletter, did our usual, PR, and scheduled a program. And within 48 hours, the program was full.
Wow.
And we went like, we might be onto something. And so from then on, we continued to develop it. And to this day, even now, pandemic, our program is fully virtual and has been just really successful because people don't need to travel anymore. The cost is less. So we, out of the being forced to rethink and pivot, we've really created something that I believe is way more sustainable than, traveling and having our students come to various locations and do it in person.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. Let's kind of boil this down to something a 12-year-old can understand. You're in a school, it's career day, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you explain it?
So there's two things that I do. I am the COO of a training company, and what we do is we help business and executive and life coaches that are already trained participate in an advanced coaching program. And it connects neuroscience, so how the brain works, with transformational coaching, sustainability, change, and coaching. So it's really at the heart of our work is bringing in the science of how the brain works into the coaching space. And so my own business, Profound Growth, brings that individual coaching, team coaching into that space, and it's still, always connected to neuroscience.
The interesting thing about that is that, as human beings, we love to have a level of empiricism to back up what we're doing. I think we wonder what we're doing, how we're doing
Yes,
it, if it's the right thing, does it
yes,
have enough meaning? When it comes to science, it's irrefutable.
yes,
It's backed by fact. So it
yes.
seems like this is a logical step for human beings in the 21st century to get to a point where we can pinpoint what we need to be doing and how we need to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And I think in coaching, historically, the coaching training is usually more around who we are being. It's around values, fulfillment, a more grounded and calmer way of being. But I think what the coaching space has lacked for the 25 years that it's sort of developed and is now way more widely available than when I started to be a coach, which was 25 years ago. What's really, I think, new now is that the public and the clients, in terms of my coaching, my individual clients, but also the coaches that come into our program, there is way more of a need now to be able to explain why coaching works. And the neuroscience will help people understand that. So we no longer need to go on, oh, trust me, it will work because it has worked. There is now, as you said, irrefutable evidence why it works because it's directly linked to brain development, biochemical responses, and things like that.
So let's
So
go.
we felt that the coaching space needed that.
Yeah.
It needed evidence why coaching works.
So let's dive into the subjective beginnings of your life and ask you this. At 12 years old, what was your dream career? What was your dream job?
Interesting. My dream job was traveling and the hotel industry. My parents and I, when I was growing up, we would go to, Spain and Italy and things like that. And I was attracted to the experience of, international travel and the feeling of being in these nice places. So, being a part of the hotel industry was my dream. And then I did that. So I have a hotel management background that I did for probably close to 18 years. This helped me live in Canada, in England, in Belgium, and then, we moved to the US. So that was my dream. I loved the experience of just being with different cultures and people with different perspectives. And there was also a human development part to my work in the hotel industry, developing teams. That was way before coaching was even a thing.
Yeah.
So that was my passion. I loved the industry, loved my work. And then came a point, so I'm also married to a hotel man. There came a point when we moved so often that I decided I needed to have a career that was portable. I couldn't constantly, every 2 years move to a different city, different country, and constantly reinvent myself. That got really old. So I said, the next time we move, I'm gonna take a break because I need to find something that I can take with me. And that led me to coaching 25 years ago.
So let's get to your beginnings and how the seeds and the building blocks of you getting into coaching and wanting to travel and having this level of science and adventure and helping people. How did all of these things early on become who you are today?
I think it is really related to values, and this is obviously, really the one of the cornerstones of coaching is discovering what do you value, and it becomes sort of your North Star. It becomes the direction that you take in life, and when you honor these different values that we all have, that are sort of an emotional fingerprint, when we honor that, life is fulfilling and joyful and really creates this deep meaning. And so my values of freedom and adventure and different cultural experiences, those were values I had. And developing other humans, being in interesting conversations, those are values that I had from I mean, even as a teenager, I can remember having friends and we were having these, somewhat philosophical conversations. So I think, the my North Star values were just calling me. And at the time, of course, I wasn't aware of that. I just followed my heart and, the energy of how I felt I wanted to be. And of course, now in hindsight, I realize, I was honoring values that really gave me fulfillment. And that is true to this day. My values of adventure, I still honor deep, meaningful conversations, a certain amount of freedom. Those values I still have, and they are present, in my daily life.
So, who's been a heroic force in your life, an inspirational force that's allowed you to navigate to where you're at today?
That is such a great question. So there's really two people who've been in my life for many, many years. I would say definitely the first one is my husband. He has given me the freedom to do what I need to do, to be who I want to be. It has really required him to be very independent and let me travel and be without me often, for weeks at a time as we were traveling internationally. And he has supported my endeavors with great generosity of heart and spirit and affirmation. He's been instrumental in letting me develop myself, including my business to this day. And then the second person is definitely my business partner of 25 years. Anne is my other soulmate. She's the sister I never had. We align on so many things. We see our work in very similar ways, although we are very different in terms of background and talents, but we have a commonality in how we want to be in our work that has been amazing. And you know, I think every time, so I'm sure that the listeners can identify with this. There are moments when you create a business when you just really want to give up. I mean, it's like, yeah, this is just too hard. This is too hard. I can't do it anymore. And having two people in my life, and was hitting these little low points that would show me there was hope and we were doing the right thing and we just needed to stick with it. That has been invaluable. And so Anne and I often talk about, when she hits a low, I say, no, no, we know what we're doing. We need to keep going. And when I hit a low, she is there for me. So these two people, I don't know where I would be without them.
So, if you could meet somebody alive today that's in the realm of coaching or otherwise, or science, or somebody that you absolutely think does amazing work, and you could hang out, have a lunch, talk to them that might help you on your journey, who would you love, one person on the planet, to be around?
Can it be a dead person?
Yes, it can be a ghost.
Okay. Well, I think I would love to sit down with Jesus.
Yeah.
I would love to sit down and have a conversation about his life, the history, the lessons, uh, all of that. I am deeply fascinated by the scriptures, the history of this faith-based background that I have. I mean, I that would be unbelievable.
Do you think, from a scientific standpoint, with everything that we know about Jesus and the lore and how much theology influences the human race, that our brains would be able to conceptualize that moment? If you were sitting in a room and waited for him to walk in and he walks in, like,
Yeah.
is it going to be just one of those things where you're just going to be flooded and overcome with all of these scientific fluids in your brain that's going to
Yeah.
preclude you from being able to, like, be there?
To even say something,
Yeah,
right? I mean, there's
that's
even
my thought.
Yeah, no, totally. There's even a song, that I really enjoy that goes like very similar. What would I do? What will I do when I meet you?
Yeah.
Will I be overcome? Will I fall to the ground? Will I be so in awe? And it's a really good question. Interestingly enough, last year, Anne and I did some research on the science of spirituality, which was absolutely fascinating. And so it turns out that we all have this, there's a part of our brain that is actually pre-wired for us to deeply be spiritual.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that, even our brains are created to connect to spirit, whatever that might be. We're not talking religion now, right now, we're talking spirit. And, that has different meanings and different characters for different people. And so it's interesting that we have that wired into us. And so I would hope that at that moment, my brain would be able to connect to that pre-wired part of my brain that's really deeply spiritual. And I would be able to, calm down enough to ask a question, or maybe not. Maybe being in silence and just being with it, maybe that's really enough. That is one aspect of the science of spirituality that I really loved, because there is research that points to so many areas where we really can connect to our spiritual selves, but there's also so many things that are mystical, that are unknown. And I love that, because I don't think it's necessarily helpful that everything is proven by science. I think it's very helpful to have a science grounding in many ways, but having a little bit of mystery is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. So, of all of the travels that you've been on in your life, what's one of the most magically, unexpectedly delightful places you traveled to?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's two places that come to mind immediately. We lived in Vancouver for a year and a half, which was absolutely magical. The presence of mountains and ocean was just beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. I grew up in Germany, in the southern area, so close to the mountains. It's my happy place. The Alps, the ringing of the cowbells. Not that we had any in Vancouver, but it sort of brought me back to my childhood. Was definitely a wonderful experience. And then we traveled to Florence many years ago. We took my mom and we stayed in a tiny little winery, like from the 18th century, and overlooking the grapes and the olive trees, with this beautiful view, and the food and the wine and all of that. That was absolutely magical. So those two places, I can go back to that again and again and again. And then, of course, there's Germany, where I was born and raised and spent the first 21 years of my life, which is always a calling of my heart.
So Vancouver's obviously brokered a deal with Hollywood because there's a lot of times where I'll see pans of cities and I'm like, that doesn't look like New York, but it has that New York look. It's dense, there's water, it looks like it, and it's always like every time I look up the show, it's Vancouver, you know? So it's beautiful there.
Yeah, and you have to remember that we lived in Vancouver. That's now about 35 years ago. Our youngest daughter was born there. You can imagine that 35 years
Oh,
ago, Vancouver was a completely
yeah,
different city from
totally.
where it is now. And I have to say that I liked it that way. It was less dense, less built up. But I guess that's just the modern world.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, you're
it
right.
is. So when you think about the big word retirement flashing in your brain, what comes to mind? What do you think about?
It's interesting. I've been pondering that in the last couple of years. It comes into my brain every now and again. Retirement is not for me. I need the stimulation and the fulfillment of work. The way I hold retirement is more in terms of spaciousness. So right now my calendar is awfully crowded. Whether it's, my own podcast, or being guest on a podcast like yours, clients, the trainings I do for BEabove, we've got grandkids, etc., etc. So for me, retirement looks more like looking at where can I reduce some volume in terms of work to create a little bit more spaciousness. And so I think in the next year or so, I'm looking at slightly adjusting some things in terms of my calendar. So I'm really sort of what my vision is for the next 3 years is doing more team and group work, which will help with my overcrowded calendar because right now I coach individuals and they all need a time slot, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really pivoting a little bit more towards team and group work, which is fun to do, but it will also help with, calendar management.
Yeah.
So the next year or so we'll see that transition.
So let's say we hop on that magic Hollywood science ride that's called a DeLorean, and we go back in time to when you were 18, and you walk into the room with your 18-year-old self, and you hit the button on a film projector, and a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived comes up. Would that young version of you believe that this is the life that you've crafted and made?
No. No, and honestly, Joe, this is really such a great question. I have actually no idea how I ended up here. Anne and I often talk about this. I grew up in Germany. She grew up in Minneapolis. It's like I'm 12 years older than she is. I mean, how spirit aligned everything that we would meet to begin with is a miracle. And from there, of course, I found a soulmate that would partner with me in terms of training and development and creativity, which is another one of my values, that really helped me sort of become the person that I am now. But yeah, my 18-year-old self, what my 18-year-old self would have seen is probably more the looking at becoming a regional vice president for Marriott or Hilton or something. My sights were set on the hotel industry. Um, and then this and all the places we've lived and everything we've done with neuroscience for crying out loud. In fact, when Anne suggested we should include that in our coaching work, I looked at her and I said, that you have to do without me. This is not how my brain works. It just doesn't. And she sort of laughed and went along, took a training in terms of neuroscience. And she would call me after every class and would say, you wouldn't believe what's happening. You wouldn't believe what I learned. And of course, within 2 months, I was hooked.
Yeah.
So absolutely great question, Joe. No, I would not have guessed that this is who I am, where I am, and what I've done in the last, 50 years.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of the matter here, Ursula. I'm going to ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you. We have all these bubbles of people that exist in our orbit: family, friends, clients, colleagues. But you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? Wow. Um, you know, I know a couple of things about myself. I'm incredibly committed. When I say I will do something, I will do it and I will follow through. I am also incredibly focused. What I do and what my calendar looks like and the kind of work I do with traveling and grandkids and also having another life out there, it requires focus, attention, being organized and really lining things up on a daily basis. So that's definitely a strength and a talent I have. My students tell me that I am patient. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that about myself, but my students say I am patient and kind and present and that's what I hear regularly. And it's very hard to look at myself and go like patient, not so sure whether that's true, but that's sort of the feedback I get.
So if anyone out there wants to take the next step, they're interested, they want the resources, hire you, questions, is profoundgrowth.com the best place to go?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The website is the best place to go. There's resources on there. There's newsletter write-up, access to the podcasts that are, posted there. That's definitely the best way of doing that.
Okay. I
And
will put,
and I'm on LinkedIn. So
okay.
Ursula/Pottinga at LinkedIn is a great way to connect.
I will put both those links in the show notes. Ursula, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your insights, your story. Have a great 2026.
Thank you, Joe, for your
Yes.
curiosity. I appreciate it. It was very fun talking with you. Thank
It
you
was
so
great.
much.
Thank you. And I got